Welcome to the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast vlog. I'm Sean, I'm your host, and it's Sunday, so you know what that means. It's time for the wrestling report. Lots of going-ons in the world of professional wrestling. The big news out of WWE was with their Crown Jewel event. I will wholeheartedly admit I did not watch the event. I did catch the highlights and heard what people were saying about it. From what I saw, The Edge, Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell match was very, very, very good. Bobby Lashley, Big E, very, very good. It's good to see Xavier Woods get the King of the Ring, a lifelong dream of his. So often WWE plays it as a business, and I understand that. But here's a guy who's been with the company for a long time, and this is very good for the company. And to give him this, this treat was nice for him. The Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair match, very, very good. And I'm glad to see. I know they've done this before, but the restrictions the women have as far as their clothing goes in Saudi Arabia, still good to see a great match being put on there. And finally the big Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match. It was what it was, but again, the storyline is what's key here. Paul Heyman throwing the belt kind of between them, and you know what to do. Everything about that match, nothing was resolved. And then you go into SmackDown, with Brock saying he's going to beat the hell out of Roman at SmackDown, and he comes and does just that. He beats the hell out of everybody, destroys a camera. He's indefinitely suspended. They're setting this up for SummerSlam, and I think that again, from a storyline standpoint, it's just been very, very well done by them. I very rarely do you get good storytelling like this out of WWE. I shouldn't say very rarely. They do it, but it feels like it's not that often. This is something that they used to do on a regular basis back in the day. And they excelled at it. And this just this feels like an Attitude Era, a Ruthless Aggression Era type of storyline that you just don't get anymore from WWE. So that's exciting. And I think it's been very well done. You had at the end of SmackDown the controversy with Becky and Charlotte and the title exchange, and apparently that went completely off script, and Charlotte had to be escorted from the building. I don't know what to make of that. I'm I'm not an insider, clearly. I'm just giving you my opinion on what I'm seeing and hearing. And apparently people were backing Becky in this situation, and I got a feeling Charlotte Flair's time may be up in WWE. I got her father's no longer there, or I guess her husband Andrade. I think they're married. He's in AEW. I don't know if AEW is a place for Charlotte to go. I honestly feel like Impact has a better women's division than AEW does. Does Charlotte come to AEW and elevate that division? That was the talk. That's why you wanted to bring in Tessa Blanchard to AEW to elevate that women's division. But I think if I'm Charlotte, I'd want to go maybe to Impact. Maybe the money's not as good, but the caliber of performer you're working with is much higher than it is at AEW. So I guess it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. I think clearly, having Andrade in AEW is going to be the big draw for her. But I feel like with few exceptions, probably Hikaru Shida, probably Britt Baker. There's nobody there that I would say Charlotte's like, I'd love to be in the ring with that person. And that's not, it's not a knock on the AEW women's division. It's just that division is still, you can see, it's still green and it's learning for the most part, with few exceptions. Like, that you got your Serena Deebs and you've got your Ruby Sohos who are more refined, but so much of that division is so young and still learning that I can't see somebody of Charlotte Flair's caliber saying, well, that's where I want to be. I think she's better off going to Impact, where they're a bit more seasoned, in my opinion. Again, not that I know anything. But that leads us to AEW, and Rampage was good. The Andrade Pac match was phenomenal, and that's a feud I can care less about. Like, it's a nothing feud. I feel like both of these performers are being wasted on the feud because it doesn't get, like, I just don't get the whole thing. Like, why is Andrade? It's a feud that makes no sense to me. But yet, they've had two great matches. Like, that's the thing you can't tell. Like, their chemistry in the ring is phenomenal. And, that has been the great part about this. But, like, the overall storyline that they're telling, I can give two shits about. But that was a great match on Friday night. And that, the ending with Cody Rhodes coming in, Cody in black t-shirt, black jeans, the dark side of Cody Rhodes coming out. Look, and I'm a Cody fan, but, oh God, stop it. Just stop it. And I'll address that in a minute. So that leads us into Dynamite. Some good matches on Dynamite. You started off with Bryan Danielson against Dustin Rhodes. That was a great match. And, I think, Dustin's a guy who can have a good match with anybody, but when you put him in with a guy like Bryan Danielson, they're going to have a great match, and they did. It wasn't a 5-star match. It wasn't the greatest match I've ever seen, but they had a great match. For what it was a great match. And later on in the show, you had Ruby Soho against Penelope Ford, and it was okay. That was part of the TBS title tournament. And I hope they find a way to fit more than one women's match in a week, because if not, this title tournament is going to take forever. So they've got to do at least 2 matches a week now. I feel like. Otherwise, it's going to take 2 weeks to get through the first round, 2 weeks to get through the second round. You're a month into this tournament at that point, and so I hope they figure out, hey, we need to have, especially if you're going to have this as a secondary title, you need to have more women's matches. The women need more time, and I know that's tough to do. You're trying to fit as many people on as possible, but you have to find a way to make this work. On the other side of that, though, you had the Lance Archer Eddie Kingston match, which clearly ended abruptly. Lance Archer went for a moonsault. He didn't twist all the way over and came down very awkwardly on his head. This was clearly not part of the match. And, I know Archer has tweeted, thanking everybody for the concern. He said he's going to be okay. That's great. But it was a scary moment, and, these guys they put their bodies on the line every night, and, accidents are going to happen. And this was nobody's fault. It happened. And, but it was one of those things where when you see it happen, I just cringed. And, I kind of wish Archer had just taken the 10-second count out. But he got back in the ring. Kingston rolled him up. I don't know if that was supposed to be the ending of the match. But I don't know if Kingston was supposed to win the match. Either way, he's gonna, the winner of that match is gonna fight Bryan Danielson. I think either one of those competitors would have been interesting for Danielson. I like Kingston Danielson. I think it's gonna be a good match, but I wonder if that was who was supposed to win the match, or if that was just an audible call because of the situation with Archer. And lastly, we finish up with Cody versus Malachi Black. And it's just an odd match to begin with. They excuse me. The referee kind of gets disregarded in this match. At one point, Black slides a chair in and Cody takes a swing, but Black ducks and he misses. These are disqualifications. This wasn't a no-holds-barred match. This wasn't a lights-out match. This wasn't a hardcore match. This was supposed to be just a regular old match. And rules should have applied. And they, this is one of those things I do hate that AEW does, is they kind of do bury their referees quite a bit. You had, during all the shenanigans, you had Malachi Black set up a table. And when I mean shenanigans, Andrade came out and Pat came out, and you had Brock Anderson and Lee Johnson coming down the ringside for some reason. It was hijinks and shenanigans all the way through. And at the end of it, part of the end of it, Black sets up this table. Cody does a crossroads through the table. That should have been a disqualification. But the referee lets it go. It wasn't a situation like you accidentally knocked somebody through a table. Like you kicked somebody on the apron and they fell and they went through the table. No, this was you hit a crossroads and you deliberately put the man through the table. It made no sense. You got Arn in the ring. Fans were chanting, "Get the Glock," which was kind of funny. Malachi Black spits the mist in Arn's eyes. When Cody hits a crossroads, Black kicks out of it. Black hits his spinning heel kick finisher. Cody kicks out of that. Cody hits a second crossroads and he finishes off with a Tiger Driver 98. And I wouldn't have known that was a Tiger Driver 98. Excalibur said it was, so that's what I'm going to go by. I don't want to sound like ooh, look at Sean knowing the moves. No, Excalibur announced as a Tiger Driver 98, so that's what I'm going to go by. But it seemed like a weird match. At the end, Cody continues to get booed. Online, it's all about, Malachi Black's buried now. He's done. And no. Match one, Malachi Black beat Cody so badly that he stood on him. He put one foot on his chest to pin him. This is what babyface storytelling is. This is what Cody likes. And that babyface storytelling is the babyface gets destroyed. The babyface makes a comeback. The second match, and you watch the second match, it was much more competitive, and Black wins with the mist. And you get to the third match where the baby face will do whatever it takes to win. And that's what this was. This was old school Dusty Rhodes storytelling. Like it was. This is how things were done back in the day, and that's what Cody likes. Cody is a traditionalist still. He's in a wrestling promotion that is anything but traditional, and it's like, but Cody is still traditional in how he wants to tell his stories. It's why you got the USA versus Britain, for him and Anthony Ogogo. There's no animosity between those countries, but Cody's going to create it because he wants to tell that story once. He wants to be the American hero. I think, and I don't know how you do this because you're an executive vice president, but if there was a way to take Cody Rhodes off of TV for 6 months. And again, it's hard to do. It's hard to convince a wrestler to do this. But if there was a way to take him off of TV for 6 months and let him come back somewhere down the line and be the hero that we needed, that would be fantastic. Like, I don't know how you can do that, but I feel like there is a bit of Cody fatigue. As much as I love Cody, and I do, like I'm criticizing the match because it got to me a little goofy as far as burying the referee with with how the match went, but yet at the same time, I appreciate this because I'm 49, or I will be 49. I appreciate the style of storytelling that Cody tries to do. I hate that he gets kind of get labeled as the Triple H of AEW because it's not true, in my opinion. He puts over Darby, he put over MJF. He lost he didn't win the AEW title, to Jericho, which would have been the EVP thing to do. Like, okay, we're gonna start off with you, but I'm gonna take it from you in the first few months. Because I'm Cody Rhodes, I'm the EVP, and he didn't do that, and in fact he can, they've upheld the stipulation he can't fight for the title, so I think the problem you have is Cody is kind of stuck in a rut with what do you do with him, and I think, I watched, Rose to the Top, the reality show with Cody and Brandy. And there was a lot of cringeworthy stuff on there, particularly in their personal life. And some things you could tell were just kind of staged. But there was a few moments where, they admitted, maybe you give too much. Okay, Lance Archer, you go back to the TNT title tournament, and, Lance Archer loses that match. And he kind of disappeared for a while. And that's not on Cody. That's on Tony Khan. That's poor booking. You have to figure out a way to keep Lance Archer relevant. And, they brought him back, and he had the little feud with Moxley, and that was that. And, there are moments like that. Like Anthony Ogogo, he disappeared, but he got injured. So that's not on Cody. There are moments where, I feel like people are like, oh, well, this guy's buried because Cody beat him. Well, no, he's not. There are ways to keep people hot after a loss. Losses aren't the end of things, but it's up to booking, it's up to creative to find ways to keep that person relevant. I look at MJF. MJF lost to Moxley. He didn't lose his heat. But he lost a match. He was outsmarted by the babyface. That's what happens. That's what it's one of those things where you go back and you look at, like, with Brody Lee. Brody Lee destroyed Cody in that first match. And that was after a series of matches where, like, Cody made it look like, he was being worked every single week. Until he got to Brody Lee, and Brody Lee destroys him. Then they had that phenomenal dog collar match. And, again, Brody Lee disappears, but we all know why now. Again, he wasn't buried. He wouldn't have been buried. If he had come back, he probably would have been stronger than ever. Like, a prime example of this is Miro, okay? Like, it's like they're learning from their mistakes a little bit, because Miro loses the TNT title to Sammy Guevara. The last 2 weeks, you've seen Miro cut promos, pre-recorded promos, that have made you think that he may be more dangerous now than he was when he had the title. That's good booking. That's good creative at that point now. Because now I'm afraid. Like, when Miro comes back, when we see him back in the ring again, he is going to be a monster. Even more than he was when he had the title. And who's he going to go after? Well, there's a very good chance, like, maybe Hangman Page. Hangman Page. If he's at the AEW title, like, you are looking at a few guys. Like, I think Moxie's making a heel turn. I think he's going to be the first guy who's going to get a shot at Adam Page. I think Miro's going to be right behind. I think Adam Page is going to be fighting some monsters, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting. But I think AEW is doing, like, they're learning from their mistakes. Like, okay, we can't bury Miro. He's a big commodity. What can we do? Well, we're going to make these promos where he's forsaking his god, and he will gain his favor by force. And you're like, oh, shit. So these are my thoughts. These are my ramblings. So that's all I got. I'm gonna stop. Because I'm going. This is 22 minutes now. That's way too long. So there you go. There are my thoughts on the week in wrestling. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, hit whatever buttons you're supposed to hit. I don't know. Remember, we also have a podcast we record every week, the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast. You can find us on damn near every podcatcher imaginable. We're on all of them, but we're on the majority of them. Very easy to find. Just search Pittsburgh Nerd. Also, we're on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Pittsburgh Nerd. Interact with us. I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts on what I think, because, I'm full of shit. But these are my thoughts. So, there you go. And on that note, the dreamer has awakened.